tried that out in Masdar to a certain extent with the magnetic car systems. Is that still working?
Yes, there's a fleet of, I believe, 10 or 12 PRTs that run underneath the university, which is the first part of Masdar that had been developed. And the idea there was to provide an alternative form of mobility, and there's to some extent, technical constraint from those type of vehicles, because the technology at that point was in a place where they work really well if they talk just to each other, but they don't like to interface with people so much.
Okay.
So that's why we ended up with this separation, and then giving over the pedestrian realm to just the pedestrians.
Now, Foster's work internationally, advising different governments, whether it be China or Vietnam, on new urban planning and new city making. How do you advise big clients, big government clients, about how the infrastructure is going to work when they really want I know they want to have wide roads, 8 lanes. They want to repeat, I would say, the mistakes that we've already made.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean that's a really tricky one, and it's a lot of work, and I think it's a lot of explaining on our behalf the issues that we've had to deal with in the West. And we heard about the Big Dig earlier as well, which is just one example of how we took down a very expensive infrastructure in the first place at great expense, just to turn the city back into space that's more amenable to city users. Having just working on one of those projects at the moment in Beijing, however, I think we are seeing there's sort of a new breed of clients that sit on our tables, which I think are much more perceptible to creating environments which are not just car dominated, but it's a lot of explaining that needs to be done, because otherwise they'll just make the same mistakes that we did 20 years ago.
But I mean, with their different population and density, they've got huge pollution problems, which are mainly caused by car traffic. Do you think they're seeing the light on that?
There's it's a tricky situation. I think there's a lot of, in many places, I think the understanding of where the pollution comes from might be not as obvious as how we would read it. So the relationships or the causality is maybe not understood by everybody as it is here. I think we work hard to try and get them to invest in other forms of transport that let them move that amount of people at the efficiencies that they need, and we know that the solution is not the car, because it will just, or the solution is not the road either, because it's just the problem of the induced demand, and the more road space that they build, and people will buy more car because there's a bit more space, and a road that's not clogged up yet. Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you actually promote in your urban design with your unit that you're working at in Foster's? How do you actually promote what we've been talking about today, which is the more walkable or the cyclable city? I
think from a design and building point of view, it really depends on the scale of the project that we're working with, and it goes all the way from an individual building and how that building hits the ground, and what's happening at that critical interface on the ground floor where the building interfaces with people, and getting the architects and designers to understand that facades and vents are probably not the most exciting environment for that will attract pedestrians. And then we're working up into the larger scales, where, as I said, we're rarely in a position where we can design a whole public transport network, but we'll try and work with the local transport authorities wherever possible to interface and make sure that where a development is big enough, we can locate a tube station on the site, or we can try and get the bus network amended so that the development really is part of the city rather than a separate piece of real estate.
Do you think we glorify the car? Yes.
Yes, possibly. I think the problem isn't the car per se. I think that the problem is the car in what it is today, and in terms of its capabilities and where it stands in its technological development. I think there will always be the need for different modes of transport, and there's a moment where we need a taxi to get somewhere because we just missed the bus or for whatever reason. So I don't think that the car is a bad device. I think the over reliance on the car is an issue. But I think there's a very enlightened audience here, and I think people start to understand that we need to change our thinking and use mobility in a more intelligent and integrated way.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you.
Please, thank you.